Hey, what's going on everybody? George here once again with the Vitality Guru, helping and inspiring you to live a happier, healthier and more rewarding life. So in this video I'm going to go a bit further on to the whole COVID-19 coronavirus. I know in my last video I didn't really have a lot to talk about, and if you can kind of tell by just how my voice was in that video, you can probably see I was a bit sort of disappointed that I didn't really have too much to share. So I've done my research, I've stayed vigilant, I've taken care, and yeah, I'm going to go into a bit more depth. So coronavirus, what's really going on? What's it all about? Before I start, I want to say that everything I'm going to say in this video is just solely to ease your stress and ease your fear and ease your worry. Nothing I'm going to say is to belittle the crisis that's going on and affecting people's lives, because it is affecting people's lives around the world. And before I start again, I want to just kind of give you a bit of background. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll know all I talk about is about health, well-being and things like that. And the reason for that is because my life took me on a bit of a journey, and growing up, without realising it, I suffered and struggled with all sorts of physical and mental ailments basically, and I didn't really understand a lot of them. Doctors didn't understand a lot of it, and I just kind of lived through it for a very long time, and a lot of people didn't really notice. A lot of it was, the vast majority of it was mental health, so it easily went unnoticeable. And then I think a lot of the physical ailments were like psychosomatic, induced from mind to body sort of thing. And so yeah, so I genuinely always wanted to help people, and I wanted to be something in the medical field. I always thought it'd be the absolute most amazing thing to do. And it wasn't until I was 17 and I guess all my sort of health issues came to the surface for the first time ever, and I basically got too ill to continue my studying. I was in basically one of the best sixth forms in my area. I managed to get in quite proudly, and yeah, within 3 months I found myself being taken to hospital, having almost suffered a heart attack due to stress and due to just how my body was coping with what was going on basically. And I led there for 8 hours in the hospital, from about 2 o'clock in the morning through to like 10 o'clock the next day. Parents didn't know where I was. I was 17, I was miles from home, and yeah, I had a lot of time to really think and to have a look at my life and where I was going. But yeah, so unfortunately my life didn't allow me to continue studying for a rather long time, because over the next 4 years, 3 to 4 years from that moment, I know I had a lot of work to do. And one thing that stood by is I've always still believed that it is my purpose to help others with their well-being, with their health, and even more so now, having sort of woken up to what I was facing and understand that my levels of anxiety and depression and fatigue and stress, and how badly I could sort of recover from common colds and simple illnesses, and just sort of the general lack of well-being I have. Once I realised that wasn't normal, there was a lot of work that I had to do. Now, I'm not going to go into it too much, but over years of hard work and conscious changes to my diet, to my lifestyle, to how I am, to who I am, to how I basically live in every shape and possible way, eventually I was actually able to recover from that, and that's kind of been the birthstone of everything I've been doing ever since. Which, if you've watched any of my videos, you'll probably know this. I've talked about it a couple of times now, and I've also written about it in 1 or 2 of my books. But yeah, that's kind of the background. And through what I experienced, what I believe from my life experience doesn't line up with what medical science shows. And so I never continued to pursue a medical-based career. I could have gone back to school, I could have gone back and got my studies, and I know I could have got it, but what I learned through what I experienced, and had I not learned it, I wouldn't believe it, but you can't not see what's right in front of you, especially when you suffered with the health issues and then managed to get rid of them and to know how you've done it. And there's a few beliefs that I have now that don't match up. So yeah, those 4 beliefs that I've picked up that don't align with the medical industry are as follows. That treating the causes of a issue is better than treating symptoms. That's what I found out. When I was treating symptoms and taking medication, nothing worked, nothing got better, more things arose, and it was awful, absolutely awful. And then I took on the belief that maybe if I could get to the root of the problem, that I could find where something's going wrong, that maybe I could actually do something about it, and I did, and my symptoms have gone through many things. Now, I'm not perfect, I'm not absolutely fucking top of the world, but in retrospect, compared to what I was, and even in comparison to other people I know that are healthy, I can see that I'm doing very well now. And yeah, I've seen that in my life, and others and everyone around me has seen that. The second belief that I've picked up that doesn't align with medical is that medication is only vastly used to suppress symptoms, not to actually treat and cure. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but that's what medication is used for. Antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety drugs, they're not there to treat and cure your mental illness, they're there to suppress it so you don't have to deal with it yet. But no matter how long you're on those medications, whether it's 6 months, 6 years or 60 years, the day you come off them, your depression, your anxiety, your psychosis, whatever it is you're suppressing, comes right back. Period. And there's no avoiding that. And that's the same for weight loss drugs, anything that's used for weight loss, any light amphetamine up to whatever it is that's used. As soon as you get off those drugs, unless you've changed your lifestyle and your exercise habits and your eating habits to the point you can maintain them without the drugs or without the medication, you're going to go right back to where you started the day you come off. And that's how medication works. Another thing I found out is that untreatable issues that are untreatable, quotations, can be treated. It sounds a bit paradoxical. Well, why are they called untreatable? Things that are labelled untreatable cannot be treated through the modern Western approach of medical science. That's it. Doesn't mean it can't be treated, it can't be treated through the Western medical approach. That's all that means. If you go over to, and it's why a lot of people do when they're suffering with things, they go over to like China or Asia or other parts, India for example, and they go for alternative treatments because they've been told absolutely nothing works, and the last strain of hope in them goes, I'll try absolutely anything, and then they go and actually something works over in India or China or Japan or wherever it is they go. Untreatable issues can be treated, and I'm not saying if you've got one right now that you can just treat it like that, but I'm saying things can be treated. I was diagnosed and told, or preliminary diagnosed and told, that I had a kind of blend of mental health issues from psychosis, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, and likely chance of dissociation. 3 of the 4 of those can't be treated, can't be fixed, can't ever vanish. And I can understand, having experienced that, where that idea comes from, because there is always possibility, just like no matter how happy you are, your life could go tits up and you could get depressed, no matter who you are. The same thing happens with things like other mental health issues. If you get that stressed and that overwhelmed and that whatever it is that triggers your mental health, then you can return there. but you don't have to return there, really, ever, if you don't want to. It's possible, just as any normal person can basically develop psychosis if they are abused and mistreated and their reality is flipped upside down enough times that they become delusional in themselves. Everyone can eventually get that thing, it's just that most people don't, because most people don't live out the experiences in their life that cause them to become that way. It's a survival tactic that you adapt to your environment. And so things like that, and if you're able to change the environment you're in and change your psychological nature, your thoughts, your beliefs, your thinking, if you're able to slowly heal and get through whatever trauma it is and to incorporate yourself into the world, you can still recover from those untreatable things. And finally, the fourth thing that I believe I believe from my experiences that doesn't correlate to medical science is that illness symptoms, as we know them, aren't the actual problem. The symptoms of something are actually a healing and detoxification process, whereas the actual underlying condition itself, the cause, that I believe should be treated rather than the symptoms, is just something that's what's actually the problem. The symptoms are trying to, at a clearance, a detoxification, the attempt of healing the body. And we know this because every time we basically cough, we sneeze, we spit, we burp, we fart, we defecate, we urinate, we vomit, all of these things are clearing out the system, clearing out toxins from the body. Everything that's coming out from the body, even a fever, when the heat's coming out from the body, it's clearing out from the inside out. It's a healing process. And that applies to every expressive symptom of most flu, virus and bacterial infections. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying if you have symptoms that you're going to be fixed after, but I'm saying if symptoms are coming out, you're actually probably getting better, not getting worse. If your symptoms are getting worse, then chances are something may have gotten worse and you're trying harder to get better, but likely chance if you're actually getting symptoms, you're not getting worse, you're actually fixing something. So actually now, going into the video, I know it's been a bit of a long intro, but I think, to be honest, with the state of how serious this crisis has become, I don't think it's something to take lightly. So I thought it'd be really important to actually give you guys a bit of sort of background. So going into the infection, or the virus, the pandemic, as most people know, there's three main types of microbiorganisms that cause infection. There's bacteria, fungus and virus. So there's a little difference between virus and the other two. So bacteria and fungal are living cellular organisms. Bacteria is what you see growing on mould and foods and all that, and then fungus is like mushrooms and what you see growing often on wildlife and trees and all that. Both of them are cellular organisms. They are living things. They reproduce, they create their own energy, they have their own reproductive mechanism to do a whole load of biological things, and biologically they are considered living. Viruses, on the other hand, are not. They are not living things. They are much, much smaller than fungi and bacteria, and they're not even a singular cell. They are just part of a genetic material. Are viruses alive? To consider this question, we need to have a good understanding of what we mean by life. Although specific definitions may vary, biologists generally agree that all living organisms exhibit several key properties. They can grow, reproduce, maintain an internal homeostasis, respond to stimuli, and carry out various metabolic processes. In addition, populations of living organisms evolve over time. Do viruses conform to these criteria? Yes and no. We probably all realise that viruses reproduce in some way. We can become infected with a small number of virus particles by inhaling particles expelled by another person's cough, for instance, and then become sick several days later as the virus replicates within our bodies. Likewise, we probably all realise that viruses evolve over time. Viruses do not, however, carry out metabolic processes. Most notably, viruses differ from living organisms in that they cannot generate ATP. Viruses also do not possess the necessary machinery for translation, as mentioned above. They do not possess ribosomes and cannot independently form proteins from molecules of messenger RNA. Because of these limitations, viruses can replicate only within a living host cell. Therefore, viruses are obligate intracellular parasites. According to a stringent definition of life, they are non-living. Not everyone, though, necessarily agrees with this conclusion. Some are just like a little bit of tiny DNA strand, basically, or RNA strand, genetic information, and they require then a host body to basically cling to and then to actually survive and to reproduce and to take over that cell that they've got an host of, basically, before spreading to other cells, which is how a virus spreads. Now, viruses can't actually be spread very quickly or very easily, unlike bacterial infections, which can easily come across through touch, through sharing of breath, things like that. Viruses can't spread very easily. In fact, viruses don't even spread very easily within the host body. So, for example, if you've got a virus in your lungs, for example, coronavirus is respiratory, that virus is not going to get into your brain or into your kidneys or into your liver or into your intestines or anything like that. It's not going to spread like a cancer throughout your body. Bacterial and fungal infections, they're a little bit different. They can spread because they are living in themselves. Viruses, they're not living. They need a host, and they need a host cell. And viruses, like many different forms of other microbiorganisms, they do exist within our bodies. We do have the potential for viruses to basically make us ill and to bring up these toxic symptoms that we have to clear out. A great example of that, which just kind of popped to the top of my head, the common cold. Now, a lot of people don't actually realise the common cold is a strain of coronavirus. It's, if I remember correctly, it's coronavirus 229E, and it is the common cold as we know it. So going actually into the sort of microbiological side of viruses and to the sort of further into them, I want to give you a bit of information about how scientists believe viruses exist. Now, they're not sure. They have three hypotheses that are sort of dominant within microbiology. The first is the progressive hypothesis, which is that genetic elements / materials develop the ability to move from host cell to a host cell to reproduce. In short, basically, the progressive hypothesis is saying that the genetic material adapted and evolved into a virus. The next one, regressive hypothesis, which essentially states that viruses may have evolved from a free living ancestor in a regressive way before becoming the parasitic that they are. What that means is basically, rather than them evolving, they basically devolved. So you had a free living ancestor, a mammal, person, whatever, and then part of that genetic material started to sort of degenerating and died off to the point it was just left as a single strand of like RNA or DNA, and then that's how the virus came about. And then finally, the third hypothesis is the virus first hypothesis, which basically states that viruses as small bits of genetic material may have existed, and then when single cell bacteria and things came about, then they actually infected them and reproduced like so. No one actually knows which one's the most dominant. At the moment, it's kind of accepted that all three could be true for different types of viruses. Like I said earlier, viruses aren't alive. They are not living. So they may predate life, just as genetic ancestors, basically. Bacterial and fungal, they are alive. Viruses, not, because they require a living cell. I just want to keep going over that because that's an important thing to note down and to remember. Viruses can't be spread. They can, but they really can't be spread easily. You don't have to actually sanitize everything and wear gloves and think that everything you may touch in the next week is going to have the coronavirus on it. That's not how it works. And even then, it's actually got to get into your respiratory system before it has any effects. So, for example, if you've touched something that had the coronavirus, you've generally got to like somehow inhale that microparticle off your finger into your lungs. So how you're going to do that, I don't know whether that's you're really sniffing your fingers or inhaling over them, which I don't see a lot of people doing. You've almost got nothing to worry about. And going back to what I said at the start, this is not to belittle the crisis, this is not to make lesser of what's going on, because what's going on is what's going on, and that's why I'm trying to get this video out there and to try and sort of spread some sort of awareness and try and make some things a little bit more understandable, having done the research. Being a respiratory infection, disease, whatever, it can spread through coughing and very close contact, but again, you have to cough it out, cough the mucus out containing the virus, and then someone has to directly inhale that for that really to actually get in their system. If you cough away from them and it goes on the ground, they're not going to be inhaling that. It's very, very unlikely. There is one other way that viruses can also be spread. However, that is a very specific process, and a few people will probably go jump on this section in the comments, but hear me out. The only other way that viruses can be spread is when they are taken from the organ of an animal, incubated and allowed to take host in a cellular mass in a petri dish environment. They then have to be sterilised and kept in good condition, and finally they have to be injected into the blood of a new host. Take that for what you wish. Start calling me an anti-vaxxer. That is the only other way that viruses can be spread. That's why when people get jabs, get flu jabs, get vaccines, they almost always get some form of light illness to severe illness to also death afterwards, because they are actually given, and people know this, they are actually given a dead form of the virus, because there is no living form of a virus. They are given the virus, injected into them, and then they get ill, and then it is then available within their body to basically reactivate at any given time. Just like we've all got the cold before, we've all got antibodies to the cold, but we'll all also get the cold again next winter or the winter after that, or multiple times in the year. That is the reality of vaccines, whether you believe in them, whether you don't, whether you want to, whether you don't. That is the reality of it, but that's the reality of viruses. That's how they can be spread, through direct coughing and through injections. So what's this all about? Where has this come from? Because no one's been getting coronavirus jabs, or even people that have been getting flu jabs and all sorts. Not everyone's been getting jabs nowadays, not everyone gets vaccinated. But still a lot of people seem to suddenly be up in stressful panic, and a lot of people seem to be getting unwell, and a lot of people that are dying from this. So what's actually going on? Because something is going on. Now, going back to the beliefs I hold that don't align with medical science, one of the things I said, the last one, was that symptoms are generally not a sign of illness, but a sign of treating of illness, or healing of illness, or detoxifying of illness or disease. Over the last few decades, vast masses of the population have gone on treating their minds and bodies like shit, thinking they can get away with eating as much processed fast food, junk food, supermarket food as they want, drinking as much alcohol, consuming tobacco, drugs as they want, partaking in negative conversations, negative emotions, thinking negatively, thinking stressfully and all these things, and treating their mind and body like shit, and never doing too much good for it, and to the point that people actually took care of their bodies, that eat organic, that meditate and do yoga, are seen as sort of spiritual nut jobs. And unfortunately, eventually that toxicity builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and eventually it has to come out. Now, why is that all coming out with so many people at once? There's a couple of reasons. One that I'm going to go into specifically, because I'm trying to keep this a little bit more lighthearted, and try and stay out of the whole conspiracy side of things for now. Obviously, masses of the population have been living as if there's going to be no effect or no consequence of their actions, and now a lot of them are basically experiencing that that consequence. The reason for the masses coming up with the detoxification is because, like every part of nature, the same way that birds flock together, that fish school together and you can see them dancing about in the oceans, the animals know when to hibernate, they know when to wake from their hibernation, they know when to mate, they know when to travel away to different places. The same reason that every animal knows this instinctual intellect, humans know things too, and we intuitively react to our environment the same way all of nature does, and that means we follow suit. That's why we have social patterns, that's why we have culture, and we react to our environment. And so just the same way that if you were going to work and someone got a bacterial chest or throat infection, not your whole workplace isn't going to catch it, and maybe one or two of you do, or a couple of you do, but the whole workplace isn't going to get it. The same way if someone comes in with a common cold, which is just another strain of coronavirus, a couple of people might get it, but you're not all going to get it. Some people are generally quite healthy. Some people have gotten over a lot of health issues and detoxed and cleared out and sorted their mind and body out. Especially over the last 20 years, there's been a mass rise in that, and people changing and people becoming conscious of their own well-being. But a lot of people still haven't, and so a lot of things are coming up very rapidly. They have been since November for a lot of people, both mentally and physically. I get people reach out to me all the time about it, and there's always correlations. It's always at the same time that people seem to be feeling and dealing with the same things. And I'm sure you've known this too. If you've spoken to family and friends about something, that you've been feeling really tired recently, or you felt that you've had no energy, or you've felt really anxious, you probably get them agree. We react to our environment. There is this natural intellect, this natural awareness that runs through us all, that we react to naturally. And so there is a detoxification process going on. People's bodies can't handle how they've been treated. Their minds can't handle how they've been treated. And that's basically where a lot of these symptoms are coming from. That's why people are getting all these flu-like symptoms, and that's why also people that aren't getting the coronavirus are just feeling absolutely awful as well. That everyone feels drained, everyone feels tired, everyone feels as if they've got no motivation. I know the lockdown's obviously having something on that as well, but it's why as a mass society we're all coming out with these same symptoms, and this has been going on since really around October, November last year. I know for me it come out really about January. I got this really bad illness, and I've not been ill for 2 years now, not even remotely. Came out for my dad in November, came out for my mum in December, came out for my partner in February as well, by the end of February. It's just been coming out for a lot of people, and yeah, so basically all I really want to say is that this virus, this epidemic, this pandemic isn't the spread of a virus as it's believed. And I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but after what I've been saying for the last half hour, I hope that doesn't sound as utterly fucking batshit as it does straight away. Because viruses, they don't spread the way this spreads. They don't spread to the masses that quickly. Now, we've had flu outbreaks, we've had times where toxicity has come out in mass amounts over the course of human history. And if you look at that, there's generally also a precursor to why that happened. So if you look at the 1918 influenza outbreak, you've just gone through mass world war, and all that violence and war and fear and hatred and panic has scoured the globes and taken millions of lives. And so everyone's bodies are just absolutely battered by that point. Again, if you look at the times when telecoms 4G that came out 10 years ago, I believe, and these things do add to the toxicity within the human body. The human body is an electromagnetic system. The human brain, the heart, the mind, it all runs through electromagnetic nervous signals. And so when technology like this comes out, it does have an effect, and the body has to adapt, and to go through that adaptation it's got to basically draw out a lot of its toxicity, and a lot of things come to surface. Now, going into a little bit of a conspiracy side, obviously recently we've had 5G, and I know a lot of people are jumping on that. That could have something to do with it. You're not going to have Free or AT&T or Virgin tell you that, of course you're not. But there is scientific research papers backing up that the frequencies that are used in this telecommunication bandwidth have been shown to have adverse effects, both short-term and long-term, on human health, on rat health, and on the studies of other mammals, I believe. So, yeah, so really just try and relax a little bit. You don't have to sanitize and cleanse and absolutely bleach everything you own every 30 minutes. That's not how this works. There is risk of this spreading through direct mass contact, of course. The same way if you had a cold, you wouldn't go coughing on people, they're going to get your cold. That's just common sense. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, this reaction our world has had, especially here in the UK, the fact that the government has just shut down the nation, shut down schools, shut down education, took 100,000 people out of work, shut down a multi-trillion-pound economy and whatnot for an outbreak of this size. And I know it's still very big, but in retrospect to flu epidemics that kill 500,000 to 1 million people every year, to the HIV crisis that killed 31 million people in the space of 5-6 years, and all these other epidemics that actually do go on that we do nothing about, this really doesn't make a lot of sense. And that, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you right yet, and it's not something I'm going to try and speculate upon. But really, I just want this video to kind of give you a bit more of an understanding about viruses, about how things are transmitted, how that is affected upon the body, how things come up, what that means, and to just hopefully allow you to chill out a bit, because there is mass stress going on. And one thing that is more damaging than any illness is stress. It rots the mind, it rots the body, it weakens the immune system, it causes the cortisol and adrenaline levels to rise, which are toxic in the body itself in high amounts and in consistent use. It rots down the neurological patterns, it rots down our ability to be happy and to enjoy and to experience pleasantries in life. And honestly, stress will kill you, unfortunately. So you've really got to do your best to try and not use it as a clutch unless you really need your stress. If you've got to focus because it's raining and you're driving and you've got to focus on the road, then focus. If you've got to get all this work done and you've got a half hour to do it, focus, use that stress. But don't sit there trying to hypothesize about every possible way to keep yourself safe to the point as you're endangering yourself. It's not healthy, and that's all I really want to clear up. So I've spoken about quite a few things, obviously my background with my health, trying to go into a bit more detail about viruses and symptoms and how things spread and why we get symptoms and why things arise and what makes us ill, and to kind of express to you and help you understand a bit more about why things are the way they are. Now, I've also written a book, it's called Chronic Wellness. In fact, it's here. Wrote this about 1.5 years ago now, and it does go into this quite a lot, just as a general health and well-being, what causes illnesses, why illnesses arise, why toxicity builds up, and goes just a lot more in depth about the science of what I've basically been going on about and what's going on in the world right now. So if this is something you are interested in learning more about, then check the description box below, because I will put a link to the ebook version completely for free for probably the next couple of weeks, which means that you can read it completely for free and keep it and share it and do whatever you want with it. So if you are interested in learning more about this, then it's something that you can actually pick off from my own perspective and my own background and research through what I've sort of shared in the past. With all that being said, I hope this video has been of benefit to you. I hope you're all staying safe and that you're all doing well. And if you've watched this to the end, then thank you. Please feel free to leave this video a thumbs up, comment, let me know how you're doing, let me know where you're from, how your whole society, your country, whatever's reacting to this, how things are. And with all that being said, please stay safe, take care of yourselves, and give yourself space to heal if you haven't already. Peace, much love, and have a nice day.